PhilipJCook, The Gun Debate, What Everyone Needs to Know registered. In this summary of The Gun Debate, What Everyone Needs to Know by PhilipJCook, we delve into the intricate world of firearms in the United States, discussing aspects such as ownership patterns, types of firearms, assault weapons and their regulations, and the profound effects of firearm-related fatalities. Touching on the highly polarized pro-gun and anti-gun stances, we scrutinize numerous arguments presented by both sides, as well as examine current firearm legislation at both federal and state levels. This comprehensive summary offers insight into a complex and emotionally charged topic that has far-reaching implications on the fabric of American society.
Understanding firearms in the U.S. A look into the demographics of firearm ownership, types of firearms, and the impact on fatalities in the U.S. Firearms are an integral part of American culture, with firearm ownership being a legal right in America. This summary will provide in-depth knowledge about the different aspects of firearms and their usage in the United States. The demographics of firearm ownership in the U.S. show that 35% of households and 25% of adults own at least one firearm. Although these rates have decreased in recent years, firearm sales are still going strong as gun owners continue to purchase additional firearms. The majority of firearm owners cite self-protection as their primary reason for owning firearms. Firearms owners tend to be male, middle-aged, come from an affluent background, and have grown up around firearms. Furthermore, people living in rural areas own firearms more frequently than their urban counterparts, and hunting is the most common reason for firearm ownership. Types of firearms owned by Americans fall into two main categories: long guns and handguns. Long guns include rifles and shotguns and are designed for hunting, while handguns are designed for self-defense. Most firearms are now repeaters, meaning a magazine holding several rounds of ammunition can be inserted into them, making them more efficient in self-defense situations. A magazine can hold anywhere from 3 to 30 rounds of ammunition, and some can carry up to 100 rounds. When it comes to criminal misuse, handguns are more frequently used than long guns. Assault weapons are civilian firearms that resemble military-grade combat weapons. The Supreme Court partially banned these weapons in 1994, but the ban was lifted a decade later, meaning states now regulate their sale and possession. As a result, the ownership of assault weapons varies significantly from state to state. The most critical question surrounding firearms in the U.S. concerns how many deaths they cause. The United States reports the most firearm-related fatalities every year among wealthy nations outside of war zones. Firearms account for roughly 30,000 deaths annually. The 30 years between 1984 and 2014 saw approximately 1 million firearm-related fatalities, more deaths than all U.S. combat deaths combined. In conclusion, firearm ownership, and the different types of firearms are an integral part of American society, with advantages and pitfalls. This knowledge serves as a foundation for better firearm regulations and safety measures that could reduce the number of firearm-related fatalities in the future. The gun debate in the U.S. The gun debate in the United States is a complex and emotionally charged issue. While some citizens identify as pro-gun, others oppose unrestricted gun ownership. The constitutional right to bear arms is a significant element of this debate. About half of Americans believe that the strict regulation of firearms impinges on the Second Amendment right. Supporters of gun ownership argue that firearms provide self-defense and make homes safer. Others claim that carrying a firearm in public is an act of civic responsibility that can prevent all types of criminal activity. Those in favor of gun ownership believe that strict regulations are necessary to ensure that only suitable individuals are allowed to own firearms. The debate also centers around the historical connection between firearms and freedom, and the role of armed civilians in maintaining democracy. The case for tighter gun control. The loss of life is the most significant argument for stricter firearm restrictions, which intensify violence and facilitate violent crimes. Access to firearms has gradually given way to an increase in mass shootings, particularly in public areas such as schools and religious institutions. Even though people can use other weapons, firearms remain lethally easy to operate and trigger fatal outcomes, especially in domestic disputes. Many communities with a high rate of firearm-related violence suffer from poor business performance and declining property values, while tax dollars channel to handle casualties. Stricter gun control can minimize deaths and injuries caused by firearms, curb the access to assault weapons favored by mass shooters, and help identify and stop potential perpetrators of mass shootings. Guns in the U.S. This article delves into the complexities of gun control in the United States. The federalist system in America ultimately means that each state regulates firearms differently. The federal government prohibits certain individuals from purchasing firearms, but it ultimately falls to each state to decide who can obtain a license to carry a concealed firearm. Over the past century, several federal gun laws have been passed with various levels of restrictions. States can augment federal restrictions, meaning that laws can vary between states. Public opinion reflects a level of complexity about how firearms are controlled and raises the question of whether current policies are too strict or an unacceptable level of risk to the public.
After exploring the intricate landscape of the gun debate, it's evident that firearm ownership in the United States is an intensely divisive issue, with passionate arguments from both pro-gun and anti-gun viewpoints. Key highlights include the constitutional right to bear arms, the impact of firearms on the loss of life and communities, and the varied legislation regulating firearms across different states. The overarching question that emerges is whether the current policies surrounding firearms provide an acceptable balance between the benefits and risks associated with gun ownership, or if they require substantial reform. As this debate continues to evolve, understanding the multitude of facets at play here is crucial for informed and constructive discussions on this critical topic.